All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Big Dog Brett, BDB Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about college football playoff ranking and how all of that panned out. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right in it, guys. The college football playoff committee came out on Tuesday, and they said, you know what? We know the AP has Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, Ohio State at 3, and Florida State at 4, with both Ohio State and Florida State receiving 3 votes. Michigan receiving 9 and Georgia receiving 48. College Football Playoff Committee said, we don't care anything about that. We're putting Ohio State at 1. As a Georgia fan, I'm completely fine with this. Nobody has looked truly dominant, and those that have not played a team of any quality. You've got a mix up here in the top 4. Most of this is going to work itself out, and you've got Washington State and Oregon sitting there in 5 and 6, trying to figure out what they're going to do. You got Alabama with a long shot, Oklahoma with a long shot, Ole Miss even has a long shot. So does LSU. So, and believe it or not, Missouri also has a shot at it as well. So there's quite a bit that can go just kind of haywire here in the last couple of weeks of the season. But let's talk about each team real quick individually. Georgia, we're going to start with Georgia. We're going to start with Ohio State. We're going to go to Georgia. Ohio State has had a really good defense all season, but their offense is kind of on a milk carton at this point. It's certainly not what we're used to seeing. I would have told you last year that this year Ohio State is going to be, halfway through three-quarters of the way through the season, really. And they're going to have 4 games where they have scored 24 points or less. You would say, really? 24 points? You say, well, who do they play? That must be a tough schedule. Well, no, they've played Indiana, Youngstown, Western Kentucky, Maryland, Purdue, and Wisconsin are kind of the main chunk of this. They have a win over Notre Dame, which was ranked number 9 at the time, and a win over Penn State, which is ranked number 7 at the time. Their defense has been really good. I don't think anybody has scored more than 17 points on them, and I think it was Maryland. But looking at the way that their season's going to play out, a lot of their stuff's going to get resolved, which, by the way, Notre Dame, the win over Notre Dame is not looking as good as it was. They lost to Louisville. They did beat number 10 USC, but USC isn't, it's Lincoln Riley. So, I mean, it's not going to be elite on defense. So, if you look at what Ohio State's got coming up, they got to play Michigan here at the end of the season. They'll likely beat Rutgers and Michigan State and Minnesota and then play Michigan. Then we'll have to see how the rest of the season shakes out for who's going to end up at, because Michigan still has to play Penn State 2 games before they play Ohio State. So we could get a round robin effect here. It could be really interesting to see how that pans out. But we're going to go ahead and jump down to the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm not upset about them being ranked number 2. This is still a really good football team. Georgia has only scored less than 37 points twice this season. They've played through an SEC schedule. Granted, they're not playing a whole bunch of top 10 opponents, but Kentucky was ranked number 20 when we played them. Missouri is going to be ranked number 12. Ole Miss is currently ranked number 10, and Tennessee is currently ranked number 17. So this schedule is kind of getting stronger as the season goes on. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as well. Missouri and Georgia playing this week is going to decide essentially who's going to win the East, unless something really insane happens. Unless something else happened, that pretty much seals it. Georgia got to play Tennessee, Ole Miss. Both of these teams, even though they're ranked highly, don't appear to be as elite as they have been in the past. So, of course, Georgia rounds out its season right around Thanksgiving with Georgia Tech. And I don't really see a reason why Georgia would lose any of these games. This coming up week, Georgia's playing Missouri. I think they're favored by 15.5 or something. I think Georgia's fans are going to be really, really excited and involved in this game. So in that particular game, I think Georgia's going to win it. Going to make another video on that, so you guys tune into that here in a little bit. Florida State coming in at number 4. Um, here. Michigan number 3. Excuse me. Let's talk about Michigan real quick. So Michigan has looked really good by most people's standards, but I think there's a little bit of a preconception here about how good this team is. They're not a bad team at all, guys. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But when you say they're blowing teams out, you want to see, that magical 50 number, right? That's what people want to see. Blowout is, a couple of 3 scores. That's gonna blow a team out. People have this image in their mind that Michigan is scoring like 55 points on everybody. Michigan is averaging 40.6 points per game. Georgia is averaging 41.3. And if you go over and you look at the Florida State Seminoles, they are averaging 41.5. So just 0.2 of a point more than Georgia. But Michigan is actually the lower out of these 2 other teams. So while they may be holding these teams to minimum points, they only scored 20 points against Penn State. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Ohio, can't read sometimes. It's okay. Penn State only scored 12 points against Ohio State. I'm interested to see what Michigan's going to do when they play them. I think it's going to be really interesting. Georgia has an elite defense. Michigan has an elite defense against these lesser teams. You may be thinking that when it comes down to when you look at it on paper, you may say to yourself, well, Michigan's defense looks really, really good. I would say it does. You scan across Michigan's schedule, their defense looks really good. It does. You look at their overall, kind of how they pan out with everything. If I can find it here real quick. Where'd it go? The rushing is 4.7 yards per attempt. Georgia's is 5. Michigan's passing per attempt 10. Georgia's is 9.2. So Georgia's got some pretty equal numbers here on a lot of things. I think there's a lot that's kind of getting lost in the mix here as far as which seems better. I think people will have this opinion of Michigan that they're a lot better than Georgia as far as the offense goes, and it's really not the case. Georgia's offense is actually better than Michigan's offense. So now I would say that Georgia has certainly played tougher teams than Michigan has, especially coming into this next stretch. Georgia can maintain where they're at. This problem is going to sort itself out. If Michigan loses to Ohio State's definitely going to stay number 1. But if Georgia goes through this gambit, I think Georgia might jump them because they play a 12, a 10, and a 17 back to back to back. So Florida State, their schedule, they've got to continue on with what they're doing. They got just a nothing schedule left as well. They've got Pitt, they've got University of Miami, Northern Alabama. Oh Lord, why are these teams playing these garbage teams this late in the season? They're not on your normal schedule. It's like Alabama playing, was it Chattanooga or something late in the season? It's crazy. Why would you do that? Anyway, you got Pitt, which has lost 6 games this season. Absolutely dumpster fire of a team. If they were to somehow miraculous upset of Florida State, it would throw Florida State so far out of the mix too late in the season to climb back up the ladder. They would be out of it for sure. But Georgia has the toughest set of 3 games. Ohio State and Michigan have to play each other. Florida State doesn't have to play anybody other than Florida, and they should beat Florida no problem. So Georgia's going to play in the SEC championship most likely. Michigan, Ohio State might have to play again. Florida State's going to play in the ACC championship. That might have to play Louisville. We'll see how it pans out. But as far as the layout goes, 1 for Ohio State number 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, Florida State 4. hey, I don't really see any problems with that. I think that's fine. Part of me actually is happy that that happened that way because it gives Georgia a reason to be motivated. We saw what happened last year whenever Georgia was ranked first up until they played the Tennessee game, and then Georgia went out and just put on a clinic against Tennessee. Tennessee had like the highest scoring offense in the country, and it wasn't close. And Georgia absolutely went out there and shut them down. So I think you might see some of that that's coming up this week. Missouri's got a appear, at least on paper, to have a really good offense. Um, Probably going to be the game of the week. We'll see what happens from there. But Georgia versus Missouri. Missouri is going to play at Georgia. Missouri's going to play at Georgia. I think Georgia's going to absolutely handle business here. We'll talk about that some more later. That's my thoughts, guys. Completely fine with it. Think it'll work out. Think it'll work itself out just fine. So we'll be seeing you guys real soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. Please leave a comment down below, and we'll be sure to answer you guys. So your opinions, leave it down below. See you guys real soon. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dawg.